This podcast of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs is sponsored by AAA Heating and Air.
The premier HVAC company in the Midlands is growing. Are you a top HVAC technician?
AAA Heating and Air is looking for dedicated applicants to fill their fast-growing service department with top-notch HVAC technicians.
If you're the best, then they want you. If you're ready to stop working and start a career, you can earn up to $100,000 plus a year at AAA Heating and Air.
Quality candidates will have at least 2 years experience and a good driving record. Benefits include top industry salaries, commission on service and unit sales, set call limits, company-provided take-home vehicle and gas card, company-provided cell phone and tablet, health, dental, and vision benefits, 401k retirement plan with company match, and scaled PTO based on length of service.
Contact Roy and Dana Finley at 803-677-1500 or check out their job postings on Facebook or ZipRecruiter.
AAA Air when you need us. AAA Heating and Air.
It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs, founded by firemen, with Chris Clark.
The 2007 South Carolina class was, at that time, 6th in the country and 4th in the SEC, which is amazing.
Wes Mitchell.
You know, I think if you're South Carolina, you're aiming to at least be at 50%. Then in theory, you're adding talent, you're getting better, you're putting yourself in a position to compete.
And Tyler Head.
It's been a great week for South Carolina. On the recruiting front, still certainly plenty to talk about.
On the home of the Gamecocks, 107.5 The Game.
And welcome into the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs here on 107.5 The Game. Tyler, West, and Chris along with you on this Monday morning, 12 days away from kicking off the college football season for South Carolina against North Carolina up in Charlotte. Guys, this past weekend, we had the Gamecock Central preseason kickoff party out at Steel Hands Brewing in Casey, and I think everybody had a great time.
Did you have a great time, Tyler?
I had a wonderful time.
You were there. You were there for the long haul.
I was there the entire time. I got there a little after 1 and didn't leave until after Beamer spoke.
You were one of the last people out.
Yeah, well,
I'm impressed.
One of my objections was I at least want to meet Coach Beamer because I hadn't met him yet, and I knew it wasn't going to be like a conversation, just shake his hand, introduce myself, that kind of thing. So when he came off the stage after speaking to the crowd, shook his hand, hey, I'm Tyler, work at 107.5 The Game, took all of 4 seconds, and then the horde of people getting autographs and pictures, I just backed out of there. I'm I'm going to beat the traffic and get out of here.
Appreciate Coach Beamer for coming out. A new addition this year,
yes.
Spencer Rattler. He came out at the very end, timing lined up. Patrick Davis played long enough for us to make sure we got those guys there. And it was good. They finished up the scrimmage at about somewhere between 9:30 and 9:45 and got over there at about, 10 o'clock or something. So we appreciate them rushing over to Steel Hands.
It was so funny. It was almost like we were waiting on the president or something because everybody's is he here? Is he coming? I was waiting for somebody to be the Eagle has landed. And then the security team of, men in suits come around the corner or something like
security.
that.
We had a great security
Shout out, Brad.
team.
Brad was awesome, man. Great security. Appreciate everybody coming out. It was awesome. Of course, appreciate Shane Beamer, Spencer Rattler, making it kind of cherry on top there at the end for everybody who stuck around. I want to give a shout out to my buddy Preston, 10-year-old Preston, won one of our Firehouse Subs tailgating packages
For the Clemson game.
Yes. And then he also convinced his parents to stick around.
See the kid in the one jersey with the glasses?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, he was having the time of his life.
He was awesome.
So shout out to him. He kept asking, so I gave him a secret about Beamer coming, and he convinced his parents, I guess he told them the secret, to stick around a solid, I think, 3 hours after when they were supposed to leave. And then I said, you know what? When Beamer got there, I just grabbed Preston, took him behind the stage, and I said, Coach, Preston has been waiting for literally 10 hours to meet you. And, of course, Beamer was, awesome with him, got down on his level, talked to him, high-fived him, autograph, picture. Really, really cool moment that I was happy to be able to be a part of. So shout out to Preston. Hopefully he has as much fun as it looked like he was having all day. And I think Beamer sort of topped it off there at the end for him.
Shout out to his parents too.
Shout out to Mom. Mom stuck around. They split. They split.
They split it up.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what he's talking to his friends about at school today.
It's a core memory for him.
Oh yeah, he's gonna remember that forever.
Beamer's really good with that kind of stuff. Now, Tyler.
Yes.
We can't move on past the party without discussing this. You had another core memory.
I did.
You got to hold Sir Big Spur.
I
which
did.
We said
I've seen the photo evidence, by the way.
Yes.
And the video. I sent you the video too, right, Wes?
No, just a photo.
Just a photo. So, Tyler, I screen. Now, I will not, without your permission, I don't like when people tweet out or like distribute photo evidence and video evidence of like things that people might not want, like, because I wouldn't want it done to me.
Yeah, no, you can put it out there, video, picture, whatever you want to do. It's fine. Just tag me in it. I'll retweet it. You can put it out there for the masses.
All right, y'all have heard. So I've got permission. But yeah, I froze a shot of the video and screenshot it and sent it to Wes.
And for anybody that watches this video, the reason I keep smiling is because I thought you were only taking a picture. I didn't know you were doing a video. So I keep looking at you and like giving you this big smile because I thought you were just trying to take a picture. I didn't know you were actually like recording me holding Sir Big Spur.
Oh, I thought you were just that happy the whole time. Or like nervous, you know?
I was nervous. So here's the thing. I'd forgotten about this, right? Like, the day was going on. I was sitting next to one of those big fans just cooling off because it was obviously hot out there, which, by the way, those fans came in really clutch. And they walk right by me with the cockaboose, right? And forgive me, I met a lot of people on Saturday. I can't remember the handlers' names for Sir Big Spur.
Van Clark. And Beth, Wes?
So, yes.
Yep.
Van walked by
Awesome
with the
people.
cockaboose. Beth walked by holding Sir Big Spur in her arms. And they go by me, and I'm like, oh, yeah. That's right. I got to do this. So I just like followed them to where they eventually set up in like the middle of the tent area. And I was like, I guess I need to be first. And fortunately, Chris was like right there to record the evidence. But Van said he was listening the other day when we talked about this.
He did. He loved it.
And he didn't know what I looked like necessarily, but he wanted to make a point that I held Sir Big Spur at some point that night.
Oh, yeah. Van and I kind of locked out. Oh, yeah. Here it is. This is Tyler. We're making this thing happen. So I actually held him too. Wes held him last year. Our great boss, Brian Shoemaker, actually sent us a picture on Friday with Wes holding Sir Big Spur before he flew away. He did not fly away on either of us.
That's the thing is I didn't know, like, because you see like people that hold like falcons and stuff, or like, oh, put your arm out and he'll just like perch on it like it's a branch or whatever. I didn't know if that's what this was going to be like. And if you watch the video, I'm like, okay, what do I do here? He's like, just literally hold his wings down so he doesn't fly away. And shout out to Van because he probably got pecked about 5 or 8 times just in the 20 seconds I held him because he was not happy that he was being held, obviously.
Yeah,
he has to take it out on somebody.
Yeah. Shout out Van and Beth. Appreciate it.
They are awesome, by the way. Like, amazing people.
And obviously loyal listeners here.
Yes. Shout out to them. They take their, I guess, responsibilities is the word for it. They take their Sir Big Spur responsibilities incredibly seriously and do a fantastic job of being at so many events, man. So shout out to them for coming out. And that just added to the party so much the last couple of years, I feel like. We had Cocky there. We had Sir Big Spur. Pretty awesome.
And we had another thing that we added. So we had some football players last year, right? Just like last year they had a scrimmage. We had a handful of guys out. They were great. This year we were able to grow that number. And so another shout out to Shane Beamer for allowing us to get some of his players out there on a scrimmage day. We had them in the AC back in the steel shed at Steel Hands for about an hour and a half. So VIP attendees were able to go meet those guys. We had a huge group of football players and some huge names there. That was, just talking to some people that were out there, that was a highlight of the day. We had Juice Wells, Nick Carver, Nicky Minwari. I mean, you name it. We had a bunch of them out there, and they were all fantastic, too.
That was the first time I'd ever seen Nick Carver in person.
What were your impressions?
Wow. Like, that guy individual. Runs that fast. Unreal.
Yeah. He's a big one. And Wes, you were in there watching. He was one of the most sought after guys in there in terms of wanting a signature, wanting a picture. And he obviously stands out. But great group, a lot of guys who are going to be starters and play huge roles for this team this year. And so fans got some photos, some pictures. There were some questions out there. Don't know how many times Nick and Juice got asked about their status. Probably a lot, but they seem ready to go.
I think they'll be ready.
Well, we can confirm nobody was hobbling, nobody was on crutches, nobody's in a boot. Everybody looked good.
Everybody looked really good. And, I think that's a natural segue into the scrimmage was later that night. It was closed.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is...
Yeah, we had the Gamecock Central drone out there watching every snap. So
don't say that.
That's where...
Scratch that.
Just kidding, Fink. But
Dump button.
No, that's where all this information comes from.
That's right. All the following is from the Gamecock Central drone that we flew. Shout out Steve Fink. He was at the party, too, for a little while before the scrimmage. But another good scrimmage, Wes, I think. Another scrimmage in which there were some plays made on both sides. My understanding, no turnovers by quarterbacks, which I think is a good thing for the offense. And then you can kind of say, well, what about the defense?
Ding. That's a
ding
check mark.
Yeah. For the quarterbacks, it's certainly a good thing. That's been a huge point of emphasis, right, in the offseason is not turning the ball over as much on offense. The starters played. Starters did a good bit, but I think I also heard, Wes, that this was one that featured a lot of action from the younger guys. But this is a key scrimmage because this is kind of a point where you're turning the page in preseason after this practice. Now the staff can sit down. They're talking about, okay, what do we look like? For instance, on the offensive line, who do we think our best five is, and what's the combination? Who are our top eight? What does our freshman class look like in terms of who's going to be able to contribute? There's a high number of those guys, and we can kind of dive into some of those. But I think scrimmage number 2, now that that's in the books, now this coming week, you're looking to turn the page and start preparing more in earnest for North Carolina. But it was an important scrimmage to have for the staff to get a better idea of where they stand with this team.
Well, I think, we talked about this last week leading into it, but there's some guys who, frankly, probably pretty soon we'll get a little bit of disappointing news, and that's, hey, we need you on the scout team, man. And there will be guys who are, hey, I'm firmly in the rotation. And this is kind of the time of year where I think you have to start to kind of pare down your guys who are getting those all-important first and second team reps, because the early part of camp, you're trying to rotate guys in. You're trying to give guys as many looks as possible. Let them show something. If you're on the team at that point, you're trying to make that one or two plays where coach says, hey, that guy made a couple plays. Let's get him a couple reps, maybe one line up on the depth chart. And then at this point, you're starting to kind of make those decisions as a staff, and those are very important decisions. Where do we project this guy to help the team from a snap count standpoint? Where are you in the rotation? Are you on the line of where, hey, if we have an injury or two, this guy's going to have to go in, but we're really not going to force this? Or are you, hey, this guy's second team, but he's done enough. We want to get him on the field. So I think this is the point where all those decisions are being made. And now, I would think, what do you think, Chris? Probably mid this week to maybe Thursday or so is when it kind of starts to turn the page to North Carolina. I always hear coaches say you want to use the extra time, but you don't actually use the full 2 weeks on North Carolina. You kind of do that towards the end of this week. Introduce a little bit because you frankly don't want them tired of North Carolina by the time the game actually gets here. So you kind of start to introduce it at the beginning or the end of this week, and then the beginning of next week is just a straight-up game week. You try to match that as almost one-to-one as you can for your game weeks all season long, I feel like. And I still find myself, Chris, saying, all right, are there some position battles here and there? Yes. The one that still seems to be ongoing is really a couple of position battles that are all interconnected, and that would be on the offensive line and kind of the domino effect of if this guy wins this job, what does that mean for this job and this job? And so I think we will hopefully start to get some clarification this week on who is first up on the offensive line. And then if they perform well on Saturday, 2 Saturdays from now, then you keep your job. If you don't, then you kind of keep tweaking it, right?
Yeah, there certainly could be some shifts, some tweaks there throughout the season. I do think, Wes, you're right about the North Carolina timeline in terms of preparing. But I do think what now that they have 2 scrimmages down, this is going to, even before you jump all the way into that, lets you narrow things down. You know, the staff has gone through now. They know what kind of they have generally. They know, like you said, here's probably more of our scout team guys. And that can shift a little during the season. Here's the freshmen we need to keep giving reps. Here's the guys in our rotation at each position that need to get more of a higher concentration of reps because you are getting so close to game time now.
Guys, I know we got to hit a break, and I know we're going to talk about Drew Tuazama at some point today. Also, I want y'all to think about this during the commercial break. We can hit it on the other side. Would you rather this time of year be hearing that your offense has no turnovers or that your defense is creating turnovers? Think about it and then show your work on the other side of the break.
We'll hit that coming up. You're listening to the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on 107.5 The Game.
It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. 107.5 The Game.
Chris, I've been thankful for Firehouse Subs for a long time, but I have never been more thankful for them than I was on Saturday afternoon. Running around at the kickoff party, almost forgot to eat, honestly, and we were saved by a beautiful spread from Firehouse Subs. The South Carolina student athletes got to partake. They were well fueled earlier for their scrimmage later on that day.
That's why it went so well.
Yes. No turnovers after having Firehouse Subs. There you go. Shout out to Larry and our friends at Firehouse Subs for once again taking care of us. They can take care of you as well. Go to firehousesubs.com, download the Firehouse Subs app, hit the Rapid Rescue, order the pepperoni pizza meatball sub. I can see it in my head right now. So good. Pepperoni, extra cheese, garlic bread. I had so many people come up to me, Chris, and say, man, y'all make me see that sandwich in my head. So hopefully that's happening right now. It's almost lunchtime. Go enjoy some Firehouse Subs and come see us Wednesday.
That's
Chris?
correct.
Wednesday in Irmo.
Yep.
Wednesday in Chris's current town, not your hometown, but your current town.
It's also where Colin Taylor's from.
Shout out.
Of Irmo. Irmo Firehouse Subs. Come see us Wednesday, 9 to noon. See you there.
All right, turnovers, good, bad, and in between when it comes to scrimmages. Talk about that next. Listen to the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs, 107.5.
It's time for kickoff, and the Believe podcast will get you ready for the new season.
How do you live through this as a Detroit sports fan?
Believe has podcasts covering all 32 professional teams and many of your favorite college teams, too.
You solidified your defense. You got better.
Sideline to sideline, end zone to end zone.
If you don't do those things, then you're not even trying your hardest to win at football, and I don't know what we're doing.
There was a lot of great players on those teams that I was fortunate to be part of.
Search BLEAV podcasts wherever you listen.
You know how great your house looks and smells when it's just been cleaned? So fresh. And somehow, a clean house makes your head feel fresher too. With a housekeeper from Care, you can reset your house and your head as often as you like for less than you think. Find a great housekeeper, set a schedule that works for you, and check cleaning off your to-do list so you can put your mind to other, more fun things. Get the housekeeping help you need at Care.com.
Yeah.
It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Presented by Firehouse Subs. Founded by firemen with Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell, and Tyler Head. On your home of the Gamecocks. 107.5 The Game.
And welcome back in to the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. Presented by Firehouse Subs here on 107.5 The Game. Tyler, West, and Chris along with you on this Monday, 12 days away from kickoff for the two Carolinas up in Charlotte. Of course, this past weekend, the second preseason scrimmage for the Gamecocks taking place on Saturday. And as Wes mentioned for the break, there are no turnovers for the offense, which is great for the offense. Doesn't say a whole lot about the defense, though. What is, and maybe this would be a great question to ask Beamer, I don't know if he's ever answered this before, but like, what's the balance you actually look for in a scrimmage like this? You never want your offense to ever turn the ball over, but at the same time, you'd like to see your defense at least get maybe a takeaway or two, right? Like, there's got to be some kind of fair number on both sides.
Yeah, Beamer has been asked about it before, but I don't know if he's given a specific, like, I mean, I think everybody's kind of like, you do want some balance. I don't think that there's an exact answer to what you want. And just to be clear, for clarity, Chris, you heard no turnovers by the quarterbacks was kind of the specific.
That's what I'd heard.
Thing you heard. So that leaves some room. There might have been a fumble here or there. There might have been, I don't know. Something could have happened there. So just to be completely clear. But here's where I am, because I've thought about this a lot. And I've thought about, all right, if you have a great day running the football in a scrimmage, does that mean, hey, my offensive line is doing great? Does that mean my defensive line had a bunch of busts? And, I think you can look at that a ton of ways. If they didn't have any busts, but then they still gave up a lot of yards, then it was, oh, man, they're just getting blocked. So then it's like, all right, is that a talent issue? And so there's all these types of different reasons. Well, for me, I think you definitely don't want your quarterback turning the ball over in game-like scrimmages. So I think that's a great sign. I don't know that you necessarily put it as some huge worry for the defense, and here's why. Your first two quarterbacks are not getting hit in a scrimmage situation. The majority of turnovers are caused because there's some type of disruption on the quarterback when he's about to throw the football. So that can be he's hurried and has to get the ball out quick. That could be he's hit. That could be a blindside hit where you're literally throwing the football and you don't anticipate it. Mm-hmm. So those are the times I feel like your defense is going to force turnovers. So you don't really have that aspect in a scrimmage game.
Right.
However, what can happen? Your quarterback makes an unforced error. That would be the type of turnover, to me, that you're absolutely trying to avoid.
I do have a listener weighing in the Firehouse Subs text line, 803-404-6100. Nameless texter says, I definitely like to hear my offense not turning over the ball. They shouldn't be considering our offense saw every defensive look from our defense. And if we don't turn the ball, if we don't turn over the ball this season, but defense can get some at a decent clip, just means we'll end the year with a net positive on the turnover ratio.
And I think the fact that South Carolina has been really, let's call it what it is, they've been bad at protecting the football as a whole the last couple of years. Beamer has said as much himself. I think that's what kept him up at night during the offseason and was a huge priority for them. So does that mean there's progress there? You certainly hope that would be something that would kind of translate over into real games against real opponents. So I tend to lean fairly heavily in the category of I don't want my offense turning the ball over in scrimmage situations. Now, if a defensive guy just makes a great play, like an incredible play, ball's in the air, it's in a good spot, and the defensive guy just makes one of those plays where you say that's a superstar play, then I think I'm okay with that on the offensive side. Like, I'm like, hey, my Nicky Memori is just a stud. He made a huge play, picked off a ball. You just kind of move on, and that's okay, I think. So I'm pretty firmly in that camp as well. Is anybody in the camp of I'd rather have my defense creating a bunch of turnovers?
No, I think Nameless Texter actually nailed it too. The thought and the hope, I think, for South Carolina, you obviously hope that you can create turnovers at the same clip defensively as you did the past 2 years. 1 year you led the SEC. I think last year they were third behind Florida and Mississippi State. They've been really good there. I feel like you can't count on that quite as much. If you play really good defense, sure, you can create turnovers. But in some regard, you're just waiting for the offense to make a mistake. You're waiting on your quarterback to make a bad throw, even if he's got a clean pocket, right? Somebody has poor ball security. You do have to punch it out. You have to jump on the football, right? But there's a little less control defensively over it. So maybe it evens out and it's not so extreme on both sides. I think the bigger problem that you have to solve this year is that South Carolina, as Wes said, has been very, very poor at protecting the football. They have been last in the SEC on offense the past 2 seasons. That's a problem, I think, that has to get cleaned up more so than, you can afford to lose a few turnovers, a few takeaways on defense. You'd love to replicate that.
Sure.
But it's a bigger problem on offense. So maybe this year and I think the staff would be fine with this, things even out a little bit more. Maybe you're much better protecting the football offensively. You're not as good taking the football away, but there might be a flip side to that. Not a flip side, but on the side of that, maybe defensively you just play a little bit better. Georgia wasn't one of the top turnover teams in the country last year.
Right.
Really good on defense.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It could boil down simply to you can be a great defense without a high amount of takeaways, but it's hard to be a great offense with a high amount of turnovers.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think for Carolina, they're going to have to stop the run better on defense if they are going to be a great defense without the benefit of forcing a lot of turnovers. But turnovers, man, they're so unpredictable. And like I said, some of them, how many turnovers do you get because you're just playing Charlotte and you just completely overmatch them? They have a smaller quarterback. That kid was a warrior looking back at it, but he's getting hit. He can't really see the field because the pass rush is in his face all game, and you just overwhelm the opponent. Then how many turnovers are you getting against really good teams, and how many of them are unforced versus forced errors? I mean, there's a dozen reasons why you can add a check mark or add a tally to your turnover side. I think on offense, if you sort of take that same approach that, hey, there's 10 different ways reasons you can have a turnover, let's eliminate on offense the unforced errors, the ones where you're just like, why did I do that? It's just a plain mental error, right, as opposed to you're just playing the game and something happens. A tip ball. Sometimes there's a tip ball, the other team gets it. That's not really something that you can completely avoid.
Right. Speaking of defense, the Gamecocks did add to their defensive roster over the weekend. Talk about that coming up. You're listening to the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs on 107.5 The Game.
It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour. 107.5 The Game.
Hey, if you are a small business owner here in the Midlands area, got so many things that you have to worry about. Got to have a plan. You got to have happy customers. You got to have steady cash flow and so many other things. But one thing that you don't need is insurance stress to protect your business. And so you need an insurance agent that gets you. I have just the person. She's also a small business owner right here in the Midlands. That is Amy Mason Cup. Amy Mason Cup State Farm. When my family was looking to switch and save on our insurance, we turned to Amy. She took care of the rest. A great local team right there on 612 St. Andrews Road, Suite 4 in Columbia. That's just off I-26, St. Andrews Road exit. That's Ashland Park Plaza, right back there. Go pay Amy a visit. Ask her about small business insurance. She and her team can give you a personalized quote to meet your needs, help you save, get your business protected, and make sure that you don't add the stress of protecting your business with great name brand insurance at a great price. You don't need that. She can also help you with personal policies, home, auto, renters, life, any insurance questions that you have, whether it's as a business owner or as an individual for your family. Amy Mason Cup State Farm can help you with it. AmyMasonCup.com is the website. That's AmyMasonCupp.com. The phone number, 803-772-5554. Again, that's Amy Mason Cup State Farm, 803-772-5554. Let her protect your business and your family with great insurance. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
South Carolina's new defensive transfer. That's next. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs, 107.5 The Game.
It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs, founded by firemen with Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell, and Tyler Head on your home of the Gamecocks, 107.5 The Game.
And welcome back into the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs here on 107.5 The Game. Tyler, West, and Chris along with you on this Monday morning, talking about the scrimmage that took place on Saturday. Was closed to the media, was closed to any fans, so just a little bit of information trickling out about that. One thing we do know that happened over the weekend was South Carolina's edge room got a little bit bigger as they added UAB transfer Drew Tuizama to that room, and this is something that does not typically happen 2 weeks before the season, but certainly a welcome addition to the depth of that group.
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you can add a guy, even if it's 2 weeks before, if you think he can help, you do it. And this is a big kid. He's played a lot of ball. very versatile. You've got several guys on this defensive front, and we've talked about it in terms of the other players, the returning players, but this is an additional player who I think is just extremely versatile. You look at what UAB did. He is a defensive end, an edge guy, using South Carolina's terminology, but they moved him all around. He's big enough that he can play inside. He's long enough and light enough that he can play outside as well. I think South Carolina sees him as kind of an edge guy, but again, someone you can move around. And they all of a sudden do, I think, have a situation, Chris, where they have kind of steadily built up some depth at that position. Sterling Lucas does a fantastic job of getting his guys ready. And, you look at Jordan Strong, him coming back. He was out at the party on Saturday. Dez Umeozulu, man, y'all, this kid looks fantastic physically. Like, he looks the part. And I always try to draw that distinction between, he looks great. We haven't really seen him practicing, so I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse, but as far as physically off the hoof, you call it, the way an SEC defensive end is supposed to look for a freshman, I mean, Dez just looks like a guy with a bright future. Super sharp kid, great family as well. So trending up there, I think. But you look at Strong, Chris, look at Jatius Gear, Tyreek Johnson as a veteran guy who can mix in there. And then Brian Thomas Jr., somebody we've talked about who I think we saw in the spring. We started, that light bulb kind of went on in the spring for us, watching him saying, man, this guy has got some juice off the edge and can potentially help you. So I don't know what's fair. I don't know what's realistic for Tuazama as far as timeline here, but he's on campus. He's practicing. He's got to go through the acclimatizations period.
The A period.
Yes.
We're just going to start calling it that. Yeah, he does have to go
There's
through
too many Z's and T's. And
he's with the team. He's practicing, but let's got to temper expectations. Listed at 275 officially. I think that's what he was listed at when he was at UAB.
Mm-hmm.
I heard it's more like 265. So, I mean, no biggie either way. Make of that what you will.
I was going to say, it's probably not somebody that you're going to be able to plug in and play right away against, like, North Carolina. There's definitely going to be kind of a getting a speed process, getting familiar with the playbook. And Colin and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. Maybe you get in a situation week number 2 against Furman where you do obviously get the opportunity, hopefully, to play a lot of guys and a lot of guys see the field, or maybe just be a situation of, hey, just go out there and rush the passer, nothing too complicated, keep it pretty simple. And again, just kind of get him used to everything, get him integrated into this. And then, as Colin threw out there, by week 5 against Tennessee, hopefully fully ingrained in what you're doing defensively.
Yeah, you look at what they've got left, right? So today is August 21st. The players are off. You've got 4 practices this coming week. So by the end of this week, Drew T can put the we're just going to shorten all the words that we have trouble with. He can put the pads on.
Yeah.
Right? He'll be able to go full pads. But then, as Wes pointed out earlier, now you're into North Carolina prep. Mm-hmm. So you got a kid who's he's played college football at 2 different programs. He's played JUCO ball. He played in prep school. This is an experienced kid.
He's a grown man.
He's a grown man. He's an older guy. And that will help him as opposed to, let's say you had a freshman walk in the door on August 20th or something. So he is getting, acclimated, not just in the NCAA sense, but he does need that time, not to adjust to college or what is it like to balance all these different things. But he does have to get integrated with this team. He's got a defensive scheme to learn, right? There's a lot here. And so for him to really be able to jump in with 2 feet, basically the week of North Carolina prep, that kind of makes it tough. But he is older. I would not rule out, this guy could be a starter at some point.
Mm-hmm.
He's got that kind of ability. Ed West, to your point earlier, look at where things are now compared to the spring. It's not to say that the edge group, that room's going to be a wrecking crew. I don't want to give that impression. But back in the spring, you're still wondering, okay, is Jordan Strong going to be able to come back healthy? What is Dez as a freshman? Is he what you thought he could be? Tyreek Johnson had not made his move yet. Brian Thomas Jr. was still trying to put on weight. Jatius Gear and Drew Tuazama. you didn't have those guys in. And so now the picture just overall looks better.
I think you're also in a spot now where you feel like you can have an actual rotation. And if a guy gets banged up, it always happens. It's inevitable. You're going to have guys get banged up, especially at a physical position like that. You feel like, all right, I got some guys I can plug in there. And do y'all think Tuazama, do you think he finds the field against North Carolina? Like, I'm not saying he's starting. I had somebody ask me on Twitter, hey, could this guy start? Eventually, absolutely. And, I think you look at that spot and he looks like an SEC defensive lineman. And so that's a big part of it, the experience. If you look back at his year at UAB, it was kind of a build-up. A lot of his numbers he accumulated towards the end of the year, but that was because he sort of got comfortable, and then he was racking up numbers at a very high clip. He had a huge finish to his season. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a guy that just builds up towards that with South Carolina as well. And Chris, I believe technically, isn't there another year in there after this year?
Kind of hard to believe, isn't it?
But there is, right?
Yeah, he's only played 3 seasons, played 2 at Syracuse and 1 at UAB.
Prep, JUCO.
Yeah, he had a bounce back year.
Oh, that's right. He did play the 1 year at JUCO as well.
He had a bounce back year.
But he should also have the COVID
so it's
season
prep,
as well.
Prep doesn't count on your clock.
High school. Yeah.
And then had the bounce back, bounce back is when you don't do a direct transfer, then into UAB, D1 to D1. He's got 2 years. So this could be a situation. Here's the thing. He either blows up and plays incredible and says, peace, I'm going to the league, or he gets settled in, finishes strong, and then you have a probable starter, certainly rotation guy, you would think, going into next year. So it makes sense. He is a grad transfer. I assumed, and looking at the various places he had been, I assumed at one point, Chris, that was like, all right, he's a 1 year and done, but that does not appear to be the case.
So in 2019, he only played 1 game at Syracuse, so that should have given him a red shirt for that year. So yeah, 2 years sounds about right.
The math on this stuff these days is impossible.
Still hard. I'll be glad when like the COVID year has kind of like expired for everybody. Like
it'll be
a while.
Like 25, 26 before that finally goes away.
It'll be a while. But I'll be ready for it nonetheless. They'll come up with something new to confuse us as to how much eligibility a guy has left.
It's fairly soon, right? Because
if you're a true freshman in 20, your 5th year would be 24, 25, I guess.
Yeah, most of the people taking advantage of it will have kind of
cycled out,
matriculated on to other things.
That's a good word, matriculated, nice.
Well, I can't say acclimatization, so I figured I'd at least prove I do have.
There's no good shortcut for that word.
Well, so I always thought acclimation period meant the same thing. But the word they actually use,
it's very long,
is acclimatization.
Yes.
I don't know the difference between acclimation
they're like the same thing. We need any English teachers.
That's the kind of word I get it like the spelling bee.
Yeah.
Mess it up and get eliminated.
No, Tyler, you'd probably get it right. I know you won your school spelling bee in elementary school.
I actually didn't.
You didn't?
I did not, believe it or not.
Okay. I don't believe it.
Did Tyler hear my spelling bee story?
I did not.
That predated your... Okay.
I guess so.
I can give it to you at some point.
Yeah, we'll have to give that another day.
Yeah, we'll save that. Up next, though, it is a big week, not only for football making its return this Saturday, but a pretty important recruit making his commitment coming up later in this week. We'll talk about that next. Listen to the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs, 107.5 The Game.
It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, 107.5 The Game.
Chris, let's say you got your favorite autograph this weekend. Like your favorite player on the team, you got an autograph, and you want to maybe make it a little bit extra special, or maybe you won one of our giveaways that had an autograph from a certain quarterback at South Carolina. Why don't you go over to our friends at Gold Line Framing in West Columbia, have that thing framed up, and then throw it on your wall in the man cave. That That could be a diploma, original artwork, canvases, jerseys, or flags, or, like I said, autographs. They will handle any and all your custom framing needs because they've been in business for over 20 years at 511 12th Street, West Columbia. Also in-store, they've got an art gallery, home decor, furniture, and gift items. If you got questions, 803-739-1337 is how you can reach them. They are open Tuesday to Friday, 10 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And then if you're just in town for game days, they are also open on Saturday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. If you want to get a better idea on social media of some of the great things they do, give them a follow on Instagram. That's at Goldline Framing SC. Once again, that's our friends at Goldline Framing in West Columbia, 511 12th Street.
Who could be the next player to commit to the Gamecocks? We'll hit that coming up. You're listening to the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs, 107.5 The Game.
It's the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs, founded by firemen with Chris Clark, Wes Mitchell, and Tyler Head on your home of the Gamecocks, 107.5 The Game.
And back into the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on 107.5 The Game. Tyler, West, and Chris, a couple more minutes. We're handing things over to Jay and Terry for today's edition of the Halftime Show. As I mentioned, of course, it's a busy week with Week 0 coming up on Saturday. A lot of high school football getting underway this past weekend. One player in high school starts his season on Thursday and is making his announcement for what school he's going to be going to coming up on Wednesday.
Who's that?
Being Daniel Hill, the 4-star running back out of Meridian, Mississippi, making his announcement this upcoming Wednesday, and it's got it down to South Carolina, Alabama, Mississippi State, Tennessee, and Southern California.
Tyler, you ever been to Meridian, Mississippi?
I have not been to Meridian, Mississippi.
You ever been to Mississippi?
I have not been to Mississippi. I've gone as far west as Alabama at this point in my life.
Dude, that's a big old state. Like, not as far as people, as far as spread out.
Yeah, so out in the country.
Yeah. Could be a good day for the Gamecocks on Wednesday.
Seems to be trending in the right direction.
It is. I think, it's one of those things where you feel good about South Carolina's chances. We've seen, we've all seen it. It can change at the last minute, right? However, as we sit here a couple of days away, looking good. We're talking about what we might be able to have as far as coverage of it. And this kid's a player, man. Like he's kind of one of those guys, Tyler, that can do anything. Mm-hmm. He's a big-bodied wide receiver, plays some linebacker. He's going to play quarterback for his high school team this year.
Right.
Super personable kid, just awesome interview. Doesn't take himself too seriously, but is also very, very confident in his abilities and would be an awesome get. Would really be an awesome class for South Carolina at running back. Mm-hmm. I've seen people kind of hate on the running back recruiting, but Matthew Fuller, the other running back commit, he went off on Friday.
Yep.
Had a huge game. I've told people before, South Carolina very, very high on him. They think they got an absolute steal. On3 has since moved him up to a 4-star a couple of months ago in their rankings. And Carolina was really high. Carolina actually, I think, kind of saw him about being kind of like a DJ Braswell, who, I think has a chance to help them this year as a true freshman. If you could pair up Daniel Hill with him as kind of your two-man class, that would be a great sort of additional talent in that room.
And he was one of the guys, he was at the last cookout at the end of July, correct?
Daniel Hill was not at the cookout. Okay. So he actually was in Alabama. So
that's right. He went to Alabama's.
Yeah, so you would be able to score a head-to-head dub over Nick Saban.
Yep.
There's a top 5 here, but really it's South Carolina and Alabama.
Yeah, the on-3 percentages have South Carolina taking about 75%, Alabama in second at a little over 22%. You mentioned Meridian, Mississippi being in the middle of nowhere. Is somebody going to make the 453-mile drive out to this thing? I love that on-3 actually gives you the distance from hometown to school.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see.
We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
We like to keep that to ourselves sometimes, but we'll see. I'm making sure the Gamecock Central jet is available.
Do we know what time of day this is happening?
Right now, the plan is that afternoon.
Okay.
We'll get everybody the exact details once they're solidified, but yeah, that afternoon is the current plan. And I want to make sure as well before I say the number, because you got different time zones there. I want to make sure
they're in Central.
What we heard is the correct time zone for here, the correct time. But could be a good day. And this is a guy they've been on for a long time, man. Long-time target, South Carolina fans. If they follow recruiting whatsoever, any at all, they've heard the name Daniel Hill. And, you look at Montario Hardesty, Jody Wright, both incredibly involved in this recruitment from start to finish. And so it would be a major win for them, man, if they turn, if they can sort of finish this thing out. And I think an early impact player for South Carolina, a guy who can help on special teams and really would just give them a little bit, little recruiting momentum to complete the summer before you turn the page completely into the regular season as far as football goes. So they start out their season Thursday night. That's right.
That's correct. Thursday night. So they want to. Most of these guys like to make these commitments before the season really gets rolling, and that's literally 11th hour.
Yeah, not much time left. But yeah, that's cool. Like I said, I think he's going to be playing quarterback for his team. So hopefully he can maybe fulfill a dream and commit somewhere on Wednesday, and then have a huge game on Thursday.
And we'll stay on top of it all week long when that commitment does come out on Wednesday afternoon. That'll do it for today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show with Jay and Terry up next right here on 107.5 The Game.